Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and thanks for joining me again in this sweltering heat. Over here we're dealing with temperatures of about 30 degrees, which is a lot for us. I know some of you will be laughing your head off thinking, wow, that's nothing. But we're struggling over here. I'm still keeping the Stetson on though. So today I have a really good workout for you, for fingers and brain alike, another Jimmy Bryant piece. Last time we tackled Chatterbox, this one takes the difficulty up a notch. We're going to learn possibly his most well-known piece, Bryant's Bounce. Now as always, my lesson materials for this are going to be really thorough, very detailed, lead work and chord work in tab and notation, Guitar Pro and PDF formats. And although in this YouTube video lesson today we're focusing solely on the lead work, if you're a Patreon member, you'll also have an exclusive video lesson for the chord part. The lesson materials will also be available for a one-off purchase at the Gumroad link if you'd rather do that. Okay, so this is going to be a really good one for those of you who want to work on your agility and your speed for both the left and the right hands. We're in the key of D flat and our intro goes like this. So you'll notice how religiously we're following the changes here. We have a D flat major chord, so we play the top four strings of that chord, descending. And then we have an A flat 7 chord, so we're going from the 1 to the 5 essentially. On the A flat 7, we play a reverse 3 to 9 arpeggio, something I've spoken at length about in other videos. So we're thinking A flat dominant ninth, the 9, the flat 7, the 5th and the 3rd. And then we go back to the D flat again. We come down this triad, chucking the 6th on the end of it, so like a D flat 6 kind of sound. And then back to the A flat 7, where we play, which is literally just a descending A flat 7 arpeggio, flat 7, 5th, 3rd root. And then we're going up a semitone to the sharpened 5th, or flat 6, the A7, and we're going to play these notes from an A major pentatonic. So A major pentatonic, but also notes that work very well over A7, the root, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 5th, the 9, and the root, and then the chord drops back a semitone to the A flat 7, where we play the root, the 9th fret of the B string. And then we have this little 3-note pickup run that's going to take us into the A section. Again, like a 1, 2, 3 run through an A flat arpeggio, leading inevitably to the D flat major for beat 1 of the A section. So just again to go over the intro, 1, 5, 1, 5, sharp 5, 5, run up to begin the A section on the root note of the D flat chord. Now there's a really interesting chord progression here in the A section. Just to quickly rattle through the first half of that, we have this: D flat, C7, F7, B flat 7, E flat 7, A flat 7, D flat. For the D flat chords I'm using sixths, so this would be like a 3-note voicing D flat 6, and this down here would be a D flat 6 off the A string. And then really what we're doing is we're connecting this start and end point with a dominant cycle, which is a series of dominant chords running through a cycle of fourths. C7, F7, B flat 7, E flat 7, A flat 7, which is your actual 5, and now you can resolve it to the 1, the D flat. And as with this entire piece, the melody he plays over that is just going to be outlining those changes in the most literal sense. He's just going to climb a D flat major triad and chuck a 6 on the end, similar to in the intro, but we had the 6 in the lower octave. That's something I'd really recommend working on. Major triad, and get used to adding the 6th either side of it. Especially if you're into swing and bebop music, that's kind of essential. So we've just climbed the D flat 6, now we want C7, we just descend a C major triad, and the flat 7 on the end of it there. So that's like a C7 arpeggio from the 5th down to the flat 7. And now we get into a really useful pattern to have under your fingers. These are the kind of things that you can use as warm-ups. We're going to resolve that flat 7 of C down a semitone so it becomes the 3rd of F, the next chord, and then we climb one of those 3 to 9 arpeggios again, like we had in the intro. So there's like an F9. So we've got C7 to F9 with very little movement needed. D flat 6, C7, F9. Now finger-wise, you've got a couple of choices there. first finger here with third finger on the D string, or fourth finger on the D string and barring with the second finger on these two strings. I'll let you decide. Personally, I use both, probably in equal measure, but in this case, because the momentum is going to take us south, I'd probably go with my fourth finger and second finger to help keep the hand moving to the left. Now we're into that dominant cycle, right? So all we have to do, C7, F7, now repeat the same two shapes a whole tone below where we had them just now, and you'll have B flat 7, E flat 7. Then move down a whole tone again, A flat 7, D flat. But we don't want D flat 7, so we don't want to play this. That would keep us moving through a cycle where we have to keep resolving. In this case we want to resolve, so we're going to play this very classic kind of run over a major chord. Very common in country music. Chromatically running from the 3 to the 5. So nice and slow, here's the first half of our A section. Use alternate picking throughout. Now we get into another dominant cycle for the second half of the A section. We're going to play B7, E7, A7. So again, notice that cycle of fourths. Then we break the cycle of fourths, we go down a semitone. Similar to the intro, right? A7 to A flat 7. And then resolve that to a D flat, where the rhythm part is going to play a turnaround. In this case, again, remember that if you're a Patreon subscriber, you'll also have a video to accompany the chord changes for this one. So over that portion, we're going to play this, which is just a B major chord, right? A triad, and then the fifth, one octave above where it began. And then over the E7 we're going to play, get a little bit spicy by adding that flat 9, that diminished sound. Because after all this would be a G sharp diminished arpeggio, or a diminished 7th arpeggio to be thorough, and we're using that over an E7 chord. We're implying this extension, an E7 with a flattened 9th. Pull that away and come down an A major chord, or A major triad kind of deal, and then move this down a semitone to A flat and climb. You know, just using portions of entire chord shapes here. So you've got B, E7 with the flattened 9th, A7, A flat, and then we play this really funky little thing. One of the great things about Jimmy Bryant, you know, one of his hallmarks was playing very clean, very diatonic, and then suddenly a weird little spicy note that seems to come out of nowhere. Kind of a quirky sound. In this case, there we go, quirky little note. The sharpened fourth of our key. But then he resolves it very neatly. So let's take a look at exactly what he's playing there. Again, just like earlier, it's that common country run again, from the 5th to the 3rd. In this case the chord is D flat. Something I'd really recommend working on. Grab a major triad and get used to going up and down. So many variables, just play around with that sort of thing. In this case he's playing it fully legato. Pull off, slide. You could just do 4 pull-offs, but I prefer to put that slide on for the last one. Then down the arpeggio, again thinking D flat with the addition of the 6th, and then that quirky sharpened 4th, and then we play, which is just D flat major stuff. Now this song has an AABA structure, which is really common in swing and jazz music, so again we're going to go around that A section. The small difference here is to get back into it, instead of just starting with the climb up like we did before, we have to put another note before it. And we go up as far as the 9th fret of the B string this time. So instead of going up to the 6th, we're coming from the 5th and walking up to the 5th. So 1 octave span, essentially. It's the same thing we had on the A and the A flat earlier on, which is really just that middle chunk of your E-shaped bar chord, for a D flat in this case, sliding in from a semitone below. And then come down the C7 again, same as before, cycle of fourths, dominant chords, exactly the same. This bit's the same to begin with, but then instead of a flat 9, he plays a natural 9 this time. So E9, again it's that 3, 5, 7, 9 kind of sound, although instead of this shape, he's coming off the other side. Or at least I think he is. For me, that's what makes the fingering a little easier on this bit. I've tried a few different methods, different fingerings, and this is the one I kind of ended up with. So that's 3rd, 5th, flat 7, 9, and then just like before, down the A major, semitone down, drag the whole shape, climb up the A flat, that quirky little run. Then to be really precise here, what you hear on the recording is slightly different this time. Instead of, which was all D flat major, he uses that quirky note again. Who knows how much of that is intentional? It's hard to say, isn't it? I think he was just a very playful player who liked to keep things fizzing, keep changing things around as he played. Okay, so it's everybody's favourite time of day, metronome time. This is where I'm going to play through both A sections at a nice slow tempo, keeping locked into the beat, and I really think you should do the same. Here we go. 110 BPM. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, on to the B section of the tune. This is what people would refer to as a rhythm changer's B section. So we're starting on the 3rd of the key, so that's the F. We're going to make it a dominant chord, so F7. And again, we're going to go through one of those dominant cycles. So a cycle of fourths, F7, B flat 7, E flat 7, A flat 7. 2 bars of each. Dead simple. Of course, you could always spice up the rhythm work with this kind of stuff. You can hear how well it resolves to the D flat at the end there, to kick off the 3rd and final A section. Now the melody over this B section, again, should seem very familiar by now. It's that country idea again of going from the 3 to the 5 chromatically. So you're on the chord F7, find the 3rd, in this case on the low E string. So there's your 3rd, there's your 5th. Just tie the points together chromatically. And then find the 5th again, but on the A string. And tie that chromatically to the flat 7. So we're thinking F7 arpeggio, right? 3, 5, flat 7, 1. Now we're going through the cycle of fourths, right? So the advantage here is you can now move the entire thing 1 string closer to the floor for your B flat 7, 3rd to the 5th, 5th to the flat 7. Now for the next chord, again, move 1 string closer to the floor, and that's for the E flat 7. And then for the final chord, the A flat 7, we start again by moving 1 string closer to the floor, but then we change things a little. We replant this note with the first finger now, continue the chromatic line, and then play this little run from an A flat bebop dominant scale. So you got flat 7 and natural 7 before going to the root and the 9. So that's the dominant bebop scale. Works over the A flat 7 in this case. Now for the final A section of the head before the solos kick in, very similar to the previous A sections, but we start on the 9th fret of the B string this time, and then bounce down to the root note and climb the triad again. So that's your D flat major triad, then on to the same stuff as usual. C7, F7, B flat 7, E flat 7, A flat 7, D flat, B, E9 with a natural 9, not the flat 9. That was kind of a one-off thing that happened on the first time. then A major, move it down, A flat, quirky little ending, and again, extra quirk, and that's it. That's the head done. Next, on to the solos, and this is where the difficulty is going to ramp up much further. This is going to prove how important it is to really know your changes and know how to outline them, because as you can see, these chord changes fly at you at like 200 BPM, 2 beats on each, but you still got to play lead lines that outline those changes. And this is what Jimmy Bryant did so well, using a lot of top 4 string block chords in this case. Kind of Wes Montgomery style, I guess. So the solo is going to be played over all of the A sections in the AABA form. So A section solo, second A section solo, B section, he lets Speedy West, the pedal steel player, take a solo, then the final A section, Jimmy's soloing again. So the first half of his first A section solo sounds like this. 3, 4. So over the D flat major chord he plays this, which is just the top 4 strings of a D flat 6/9 chord, and he's adding a little bit of decoration. Then move it down a semitone. That's going to work well over the C7 chord. And then adapt one thing, bring the barring finger up to the G string. Now what you've got is F9, right, the top 4 strings. Decoration around that shape, adding the 13 and taking it back away. Then on to the B flat 7, where he plays a B flat 13. Beautiful sounding chord. So you can be thinking B flat 7 with the 13 and the 9. And then again, E flat, take a 9th chord, or the top 4 strings of a 9th chord, and add the 13 on top. And then to the A flat 13. Just like we did for the B flat 13. So one good thing to work on here, take away the decoration a little bit and you'd really be left with this run of shapes, right? 9th chord rooted on the A string, 13th rooted on the E string, 9th chord on the A string, 13th on the E string. And you can just fish around for cool little things to add with your little finger. Resolve things back to the D flat. We started with a D flat 6/9 and we finished with one. This is another portion of a D flat 6/9 chord. One of those gypsy voicings that I use so often. The one that makes people cower in fear. Good news is if it's just the top 4 strings we want, you don't have to do any of that barring with the tip of the second finger that I know you love so much. We get to go 11, 10, 11, 11. And just do a little side step. Very typical of the sort of swing sound. Sounds big bandish to me, Count Basie style. Now for the next part of that first A section, we're dealing with the B7 to the E7 to the A7 to the A flat 7. And we play this. This is like a B major, right? Again, the top 4 strings of this bar chord, but we're bringing in the 9th on top with the little finger. Slide the whole thing in from a semitone below, and then E9 with the 13 added. So again, you could be seeing like a 9th chord off the A string. And then A6/9 with that same shape we just spoke about, the gypsy shape, but the top 4 strings only. Now make it dominant by taking the root note down a whole tone. And now you've got A13, and then move the whole thing down a semitone, and you've got your A flat 13. Confusing little run of chords, but then on the D flat that resolves everything, he plays something kind of bizarre. Again, one of those playful little things that I'm sure he just did in the spur of the moment. And this is really just an approximation of the chaotic thing that he actually plays. 3, 4. Lots of D flat in 2 positions with lots of sliding. Now heading into the second A section, which again has him soloing over the same chord changes, he plays this. Nice and simple for a change. D flat major, just the top 4 strings of your bar chord, and then add that 9 again, courtesy of the little finger, and then do a little trill, and then move it down a semitone. then he plays this really nice little double stop thing, which is frets 7 and 8 on strings G and B, slide back a semitone and back up again, and fill out the bottom of that shape. In my mind, I think he's really playing over the C7 still here, so it's almost like he's kind of ignoring the F7 to some extent. It's like a C9 kind of thing. And then to the B flat 13, and then E flat 13, to E flat 9, A flat 13, and a funky little, or without the hammer on in fact. So clearly that's happening over the D flat major chord, mostly relying on the triad there, with a bit of sus4. Then onto the B7, so the next portion of the progression, he plays this. So again, a B major triad, top string, 9th fret, trill, 7, 9, 7 and back. And then keep that kind of move going throughout the rest of the changes. E9, pull off from 9 to 7 on the top string, A6, 9, A flat 6, 9. Just reaching out to pull off with that little finger each time. And then D flat, again back up to this zone here where we can be seeing this shape. He plays this great little closing lick, which of course is just D flat major scale, but really highlights the 1 and the 5 in the turnaround. So that's happening over the resolving turnaround. So notice how much of this is down to the nuances of your timing and really commanding those offbeats and playing it with a heavy swing feel. I'm going to do the whole solo here with a slow tempo of 110 BPM. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, so as always with life, timing is everything. Now, like I said, over the B section part of the solos, he lets Speedy West have a go. So you could just play the chords, F7 to B flat 7, E flat 7, A flat 7, or just go back to the original melody. To bail out a little early, so you can grab your first chord of your third solo, so over the third A section. Most of this will seem very familiar from what we just played. Just with a bit of a different timing. I've always found that timing kind of awkward. You'll see what I mean when I do it with the metronome. Then thinking B major, again just the top 3 strings of this chord here, the trilly thing, and then top 3 strings of the E9, another trilly thing, top 3 strings of the A13, and then top 3 strings of the A flat 13, and then D flat. Strange timing, triplet feel. You can also do that with the D string present on all the chords. I think I might have done that in the performance where I went. Just thickens it up a little bit for me, but I'm sure on the record he's only hitting the top 3 strings. And I really love this closing lick of his solo. Check this out for a nice little 5-1 phrase. 1, 2. So over the 5 chord, the A flat 7, he's playing A flat augmented. Just the triad here. And then walking down chromatically to resolve to the 5th of your D flat. Typical bluesy little enclosure around the 3rd, and then walking up the scale just like we did in the intro to lead us back to the final run through the head. So here's the final solo at 110 BPM. Notice the real push on the timing. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's also really important that you pay attention to which chords are staccato and which ones we let ring out. Those accents are really important. You'll see on the sheet that the dot will be above the ones that you want to have staccato. So now we go back to the head for one more run through the whole thing. We go back to the original melody. Major scale there. Then we do a little variation on the second A section. We play this. Just adding a bit of punctuation to it before going back to the usual B7, E7, A7, A flat 7, little closing lick, B section, same as before. Cycle of fourths starting on F7. Here's the A flat 7. And then back to a third and final A section, very much like the previous ones, but with a seriously cool ending on it. So those of you with advanced ears will have heard the diminished quality in the ending there. We took that initial run, moved it up a couple of frets, and modified it to make it a diminished 7th arpeggio. Move it up 3 frets more, just like we often do with diminish, inverting it every minor third, and then finish with a very classic little, almost cheesy little sign-off on the A flat. So that's the root, the third, and then the root of your resolving chord, the D flat major. Then at the very end there, the pedal steel plays a little top 4 strings of the D flat 6/9 chord. And I always like to chuck that in. I think if you can get on your bridge pickup in time, it makes it sound extra cool. You go. So that concludes our exhibition up the Mount Everest of Western swing and country guitar playing, Bryant's Bounce by Jimmy Bryant. Now, make sure when you practice this, you do it very slow, one section at a time, maybe even one bar at a time. Be super disciplined, get every note crystal clear, make sure your velocities and your dynamics are all nice and even, nothing sounding scuffed, no note suddenly popping out above the rest. Get it sounding really nice and clean, and then start to increase the tempo. Because all playing fast really is a combination of 2 things. First of all, that you've got your playing to a point where your efficiency is dialed in 10 out of 10. You know, you're not wasting any movement, which wastes time. The fingers are moving exactly as and when you want them to be. The synchronicity between the 2 hands is perfectly dialed in. And secondly, it's simply a matter of habit and a ton of repetition. Like anything in life, if you do the same thing over and over again, you get faster at it and more efficient at it. So don't go in there rushing through all chaotic like a bull in a china shop trying to play this at 180 BPM with half your notes missing. It's no good. Pointless, in fact. If you do this the proper way, I guarantee that you'll come out of this with your technique hugely improved and your picking will be cleaner than ever. Okay, so for a bit of tone talk, again, quite a confusing one this one because I use different gear for the performance than I'm doing for the lesson here, but let's just call it an offset theme. For the opening performance, I was using a beautiful Carl Longbottom's Fulvia guitar. I'm sure that by now you'll be familiar with my other Carl Longbottom's guitar, the black and white hollow Telecaster that I love so much. Well, I borrowed the Fulvia off him. Unfortunately, I don't own it, so I couldn't use it for the lesson here. But it's basically an offset kind of solid body guitar with 2 beautiful Sun Bear Firebird style pickups. Very unique sounding, very percussive and bright. Really articulate, and I really enjoyed it. And I think it works so well for this kind of thing. You know, Jimmy Bryant played with a very clean sound, and those pickups seem to deliver that perfectly. but so do these. So this is a new guitar to me, a Novo Myris, which is like basically the perfect jazz master in my opinion. It's got the Jazzmaster trem system, a mastery one in this case, my favourite trem system. It has two Lindy Fralin P90 pickups, which again have all of that beautifully articulate high-end detail. On both guitars I was on the neck pickup the whole time, and of course there's that option at the very end to go to the bridge pickup to get a little more pedal steely on those last chords. For the performance at the beginning I was using my 1969 Fender Deluxe reverb amp, and for the lesson today I'm using my Emprize Falcon, which is essentially the same thing, sounds extremely close to it. And of course I have it set very clean, volumes at 3 in this case. For the rhythm part I was using two guitars to get a couple of different textures. My 1953 Gibson ES125 with a single P90 in the neck, and also my favourite acoustic guitar, my Martin HD28V, just to give the rhythm track a little more jangle and a bit more cut. And I'm sure that's what you're hearing on a lot of these old recordings, a combination of arch top and flat top guitar tones. So, as always, do some homework and listen to Jimmy Bryant. You know, he recorded a ton of things in his career, some of them just absolutely mind-boggling. Not only this one, but things like Little Rock Getaway or Fretting Fingers or Midnight Ramble, The Night Rider, Lone Man on a Totem Pole. Tons of great songs to dig into, and they're all really fun to learn as well. Oh, and also if you've not seen my previous Jimmy Bryant lesson on Chatterbox, do check that out. I'll link to it in the description, along with the links to my Patreon and my Gumroad page. Okay guys, so thanks as ever for joining me. All I ask of you is that you please do like and subscribe, share this with your fellow guitar playing friends, and leave a comment down below. That kind of interaction is crucial for the future of this channel. Alright guys, have fun with your Western swing playing, and unless I've melted, I'll see you next time. Take care.